Welcome, everyone, to Mindset Monday. I am your host, Denise, Zack. Thank you so much for being here today. Once again, I have an amazing guest who is part of the Game Plan U community. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Game Plan U and about this podcast. If you haven't been here before, this podcast is part of the Game Plan U community. And what I'm doing is bringing on our founders, our executives in residence, and talking to them about those 6 inches in between their ears. I am diving into the real stuff that makes us human, that makes us grow, that helps us learn and be successful, that no one really sees. It's the behind the scenes stuff. It's the inside stuff that makes us tick. And that's what I want to get to, because it's important for people to understand who are learning how to be successful, who are learning how to pivot, who want to grow and be as successful as they can, to understand that mindset is everything. 20% of how you succeed is the logistics. The other 80% is how your mind works, the psychology of how you operate on a day-to-day basis. And that's what this podcast is all about. Game Plan U, if you haven't heard of it, is a community of sports tech innovation founders coming together to support one another, to get validation, to grow, and to learn within our community. We bring in executives and residents who are looking for deal flow and looking to grow and have investment opportunities, but also provide mentorship to our founders. In addition, we have this really cool vertical where we bring on career seekers, people just out of college, people who are pivoting in their career, who want to get into sports technology. We bring them in to support our founders by doing one-off projects, building their resume, their portfolio, and really diving into this sports technology community. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on today's guest, and he is someone he's been a member of our community for just a couple of months now. He's someone who's doing something really cool in the sports betting and wagering world, and so we're super excited to have Mark Benrus, CEO and founder of Creative Wagering Technologies. Mark, welcome. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Denise. I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that you've got this really cool platform, and I'd love to hear about that. But I want hear a little bit about you as well, who you are as a person, as a professional, and then tell us a little bit about your business and your technology that you've developed, which I think is amazing.
Sure. Well, starting with a little bit, I guess, about me. I am a financial guy by trade. That's my general background and things like that. But as importantly, and maybe more importantly in this instance, I've also been a very big fan of horse racing for pretty much my entire life, about over 40 years, and started as just a young kid who used to go to the racetrack with his dad and tracks and things, and it was a lot of fun. And about 12 years ago or so, when racing in general was kind of in a decline from an industry perspective, I sat down and tried to come up with some thoughts and ideas on how to help the sport as a whole. Not necessarily anything that I was looking from a business perspective so much, but just thoughts and ideas on how to help the industry kind of rejuvenate itself, bring younger people and things like that.
Pain point. They see something changing, something suffering, something not working as it should. And then the combination of those two things driving this kind of creative process of developing an app or a technology or a business around that pain point to solve it. And I see that specifically in your case, looking for ways to bring the younger generation in, to increase the numbers of people wagering and betting on sports or horse racing for the most part. And I know you do some of the dog racing as well. But, I think it's I just think that's such an interesting thing to note right up front, because that's generally how many founders start their businesses, that passion, that pain point coming together to solve a problem.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that, with any business that you're involved in, if you're really going to you have the opportunity to be successful, you better have as you described, a passion with regard to what it is that you're getting involved with. And the other piece, that if you are stepping into something that you truly enjoy and enjoy participating in, like I did with the horse ownership and all of the other things that were involved, it makes it where when you're doing that work that's involved and putting something together, and I can relate back to when I built my stable of horses initially, it wasn't like I was going to a job every day. It wasn't the time that and the effort that you have to put into it. There's a certain level of additional enjoyment that you get out of that over and above the aspect of the work that has to go into it. And it just makes it that much simpler and easier and more fun to do.
I totally agree with you. If there is an enjoyment level, if there is some passion that you have that really fills you, then it gives you a sense of purpose that kind of supersedes any of the challenges and struggle. And I think, if I'm kind of taking a step back, that is critical with founders, because the work is so hard and there is so much to pay attention to. And all of that is kind of on the shoulders of the founder, that you better have that passion and that enjoyment so that you can enjoy the ups when they come, because there's lots of downs and there's lots of hurdles to jump over, sometimes literally, but
Yes.
most of the time figuratively, right?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's one thing, if you're going to go into business for yourself and found an be a founder of an operation, you have to be prepared to deal with the highs and lows that come with that, because it's an exciting thing to do, but the challenges that you face along the way, there'll be many that you expect and countless others that you will never see coming, that'll come out of left field on you, and you've got to figure out ways to work through them, work around them, or manage the aspect of your business in conjunction with others that you have to go through and participate with or deal with, because especially with what I'm dealing with now, having moved past the horse ownership aspect of things, I mean, you're talking about regulatory issues and other things that can come into play depending upon the business that you're in. But yeah, you better be able to roll with the punches, as they say.
I completely agree, and couldn't have said it better. You talk about these roadblocks that come up that many times send people in the opposite direction, where they're kind of closing their doors or they think it's too difficult. So let's dive in a little bit deeper, because I know that you've talked about this being a process for you, and that there have been many iterations of the creative wagering technologies, but also many pivots in your career along the way. Obviously, we talked about your passion and how that drives you and keeps you going. But when you hit those potential roadblocks, and sometimes they're not as big as we think they are, sometimes they are as big as we think they are. How do you manage that? What is your mindset when you come up against a challenge like that, where you haven't folded and shut the doors? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's such an important part of your strength as a founder.
Well, I think I'll take you back to the next part of the journey that I've been on. I talked about, how I got into racing and all the rest. And back as I ended a little bit ago, about 12 years ago, when I came up with the idea on how to potentially help the racing industry, I put together a plan. I had a concept for a product. I went out and got a patent actually on the product. That's an experience in and of its. Patent attorney that helped me through that process, and she was magnificent. And without her, I don't know that I would have gotten where I got to from that perspective of things. But I was able to secure a patent for the product that I've got, and then from there we had to go through and raise some capital, and we were able to do that. We raised money for our business that was intended to serve for the cost of the development of the game itself, and also our initial market launch. And we went through that process for a couple of years. And frankly, what ended up happening in my instance was we pretty much put all of the funding that we had raised into the development of the game, and frankly ran out of money to do the product launch. And so went through an experience as you talk about ups and downs and things like that. We went through a very, very big down because we developed the game. That part's done. Have that in place and all the rest. And then we were not able to take it to the market because of the fact that we didn't have enough funding. Bottom line is, back at the end of 2018, I ended up having to close the business. And at that point in time, I had a couple of investors that were involved with us. I had a partner as well. And we basically turned the business over to the people that had made the investment in our operation, my partner and I. And so basically things came to a complete standstill at that point. And it was a very disappointing and a very difficult time because, you put your heart and soul into something and all of a sudden you see it disappear. Subsequent to that happening, I went back to the investor that took over operation of the business, and I convinced him to give me another opportunity with regard to the operation and trying to go through and drive it forward and get it into the marketplace. Bottom line was that truly did not happen until towards the end of 2020. So basically the business sat idle for a couple of years, and we weren't able to do anything with it. And it's ironic, a friend of mine that I had just recently met about a year prior, we were sitting and talking one day and about different experiences. And I told him about what happened with the business and the game concept that I created and things along that line. And he goes, well, why did you stop? And so I told him, I said, well, we basically ran out of funding. He goes, well, what's preventing you from doing it again? And I said, well, nothing other than, the frustration that we went through and that type of thing. And he was actually the one that convinced me to give it another try. And ironically, as I was beginning to go down that path again, was when all of the different things started to develop with regard to online sports wagering. Now, we started in the horse and dog arena, but the game concept that I've created is readily adaptable to the sports wagering market as well. And so even though my expertise is more in line with horse racing more than anything else, the ability to adapt and pivot this game also into the sports, esports, and fantasy sports arenas is another opportunity that exists. So that's all part and parcel of why I have, for lack of a better word, a very rejuvenated spirit with regard to what I'm trying to get accomplished here. I think we have a very exciting opportunity to not only help the horse racing industry, which was, and still is my number one goal, but also to branch out into other things that really is going to, I think, bring the potential for just the everyday person to participate in things that they've never been able to before, because our game is basically designed to allow anybody who wants to make a wager on any type of event that's, sporting related, racing related. We've got the ability to do that in a very nice, simple process for any and everybody. And that's really the design, is to give people a new, fun, and exciting entertainment experience opportunity.
And an easy way to do it, right? And I think I remember when we first met, you talked about the fact that you don't have to be a horse racing expert to understand the odds and all of the back end stuff that goes into making a bet, and that you have an automated process that happens with your technology that takes the confusion out of it and takes the kind of burden out of it and allows the person to just enjoy the process, and which I think is great, because you open the door for so many more people to take advantage of it at that point.
Yeah, and honestly, that was the founding idea behind the whole concept, was to come up with something that's nice and simple and easy, but yet at the same time gives a very interactive experience for the person that's using the game. And in the process, even though you don't have to go to the window to make a bet, you don't have to, handicap a racing form, you don't have to do any of those things to use the game that's been created. But what it does is it starts the thought process of, oh, how does that work? What does that mean? And so I'm hopeful that as things progress, that our game not only becomes that fun, exciting entertainment experience, but it also becomes an educational tool for people to be able to learn other things as well.
Very cool. So that it will continue to grow and evolve as the company itself does, and helps expand its reach to different people, and really increase the pleasure, but also the knowledge of people using it, which I think is cool.
Correct.
I want to dive in, though. You talked about so many important things in this last piece when you talked about having to close the business. You talked about having to have the right people around you to help you. And I just think that's such an important piece of being a founder. We don't know it all. We don't have all the answers. And we need people that are going to be cheerleaders, champions for us, number one, and that friend that kind of told you, get back out there. But we also need people who know how to do what we don't know how to do, like your patent attorney. And so I just think that's so important. If you are a founder, I think there's an ego piece of being a founder, that they should have it all and they have to be able to do it all. And in my opinion, I'm thinking, I think it's quite opposite of that, is to own the fact that you don't know it all and bring people on that can help you grow and expand.
Well, if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my professional career, as I mentioned, my background is in finance. I'm a CPA, and I've done the CFO gig and things like that over the years. The things that I've learned through those experiences, as well as what I've done in the racing industry, is that I will be the first to tell you I'm the last person that knows everything. And because of the fact that I'm the last person that knows everything about everything, I need those people around me in order to be successful. And I learned that, like I said, in my CFO role, where, surrounding yourself with the right individuals makes all the difference in the world. And as I've progressed into these other arenas, especially what I'm doing now with regard to, an online wagering site, the team that I had that helped get us to where we were back in 2018, I had a wonderful partner, and he certainly was very, very well versed in the development side of things, and he was a very intelligent individual as well. But at the same time, right now, with where we are at, I've also got a very strong group of people surrounding me. I have an individual who's very versed with regard to contacts within the racing industry as a whole, racetrack operators, things like that, regulators within the industry, and things along that line. And then on the technical side, an individual that is very, very in tune with regard to the backbone of our game and how it functions, how it operates, and things along that line. We did have to go through and upgrade our operating system, and we were able to identify another development group that has done a very great job helping us getting that back where it needed to be. And so without those things, if you think for a minute that you can just do these kind of things on your own, and that you're going to have all the answers to all of the different questions you're going to be faced with, frankly, I think you're going to have a much more difficult road to go down than you would if you brought others into play with regard to what you're doing, and lean on them for their expertise. And most importantly, always be willing to listen to the thoughts and ideas that other people have, because a lot of times things will come out of nowhere that you never even thought of before, and they become very, very, very meaningful.
I love it. It's so powerful, and such an important thing to keep in mind as a founder, as an entrepreneur, in general, right?
Yep.
You also talked about going back out there, getting back out there afterwards, after you close the business, and really just trying to dive back in and convincing people that this is the right time and this is an important technology and it's something that will be successful. There's a certain amount of confidence that has to come with that, and risk that comes with kind of putting yourself out there. And I think as a founder, that mitigated risk is also really important, knowing and believing in what you're doing, and then also convincing other people this is the right thing to do. Take that chance on us. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that kind of mitigated risk as a founder. That's so important.
Sure. Well, from that perspective, if you're going to do anything that has meaning to you, you better, number one, believe in it. You better have the confidence to know in your heart that you can be successful at what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. I think the aspect of having an underlying goal that is not necessarily financially driven is also very important if you're going to have the mindset that I feel you need to have to get through the highs and lows, because money's only going to take you so far, and money's great. And, obviously to run a business, you have to be successful from a financial perspective. But at the same time, if there's an underlying goal to what you're trying to do, I think it just brings more enjoyment. I think it brings a higher level of confidence as well, right along with it. And that goes back to, like I said, my initial push with regard to everything that I did, was to try to help the racing industry, and that still is, the underlying aspect of what I'm looking at. And has that now branched into other things with other opportunities? In today's marketplace, it actually has. So that's added a whole new spectrum to what in comparison to what I was initially looking at. And with now the advent of the sports wagering and all the other things that are available out there, it's just kind of broadened the horizon with regard to opportunity, and also the excitement that's involved. But again, at the end of the day, if you have to have an underlying confidence in your ability and in what you've created and what you're trying to do, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to have to, lack of a better word, sell not only the people that are working with you, but the people that are going to become part of your operation from the standpoint of your clientele and things like that. You basically have to be that cheerleader on an ongoing basis. And there are countless numbers of highs and lows. Even though I've, working towards getting this whole business back up and operating, we have a lot of mountains to climb. And you got to just continue to try to forge ahead. And the other thing I would say is, don't try to conquer the whole thing all at once. You have to have a plan to figure out, how am I going to do this on a step by step, piece by piece basis, because it will overwhelm you if you try to do too much at one time.
I love it. Yeah, such good advice. And I know that people listening will certainly appreciate your wisdom and your experience in this process. The last thing that you've touched on, even in this last comment that you made, but earlier as well, is this concept of kind of timing is everything, but also learning how to be flexible in the process, right? That sometimes it's not the right time and things happen for a reason. But if you're willing to be flexible and patient, and keep your nose to the grindstone, you eventually will get to where you need to get to. So can you talk to us a little bit about that kind of timing is everything, and learning how to be flexible in this process as an entrepreneur?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I do think, and maybe initially when I first went through the process of getting the business out there, I don't know that I paid as much attention to the timing aspect of it. I believed when I first came up with the concept and went through the steps that I did, I believed that this was something that could really help the racing industry as a whole. Um, I also found that as I presented the thoughts and ideas to people within the industry, that everyone that saw what I had was very interested in it, thought that it was a great concept, thought it was a great idea, but trying to push it over the finish line to the point of getting them actually involved was a very, very, very big challenge because, especially in the racing industry, people are very ingrained in how they've done it forever and ever. And so trying to get people to change is a very challenging thing to do. And again, as much as I believed that the racing industry needed something like I was bringing to the table, I don't know that the racing industry was ready for it at that point in time. As time has progressed and gotten us to the point where we are today, I think that not only has the racing industry progressed to the point where I think they now realize they need to adapt even more so than they did before to new technology and things along that line, or they're going to get left behind. But the advent now of sports wagering and the other things that you couldn't even consider back, years ago, it was not legal to do. Well, now that that's an evolving additional opportunity, um, again, from a timing perspective, I think where I am today, as much as I thought years ago I was where I needed to be, I think, ironically, I think we're in a better position now than we were then. And there's going to be more opportunities. And um, it's all a matter of if you believe in what you have. And I know I heard this and I, kind of pooed it and stuff. It's like, keep your nose to the grindstone and, forge ahead and all these other different things. It's easy to say, it's not so
Right.
easy to do. And
Absolutely.
yeah, but I will say that if you really believe in what it is that you're doing, and that you also have the additional benefit of believing that what you're doing is not necessarily going to just help you, but it's going to help others, um, it stick to it and don't give up, because um, you never know what's around that next corner. And what you think might be the perfect time, maybe you just need a little more time for things to develop. And I'm hopeful that that's what's going to happen in my case.
I love it. And extending it kind of beyond yourself, right? That it's bigger than
Correct.
you and looking to help and make the world a better and happier place, really, at the end of the day, or a more efficient place, or whatever it is, just looking to kind of outside yourself, which I think is so, so important. Really
Yep. And,
important.
and and I met, I mean, and not met, I still know and have friends in the racing industry when I raced racehorses. I mean, some of the most wonderful down to earth people I've had I've met in my entire life. I met racing horses, and I also lived and experienced the struggles that they go through. When it comes to the training and all the other things that are involved from that perspective. And at the end of the day, that's really where my objective was to try to figure out how can we help the people that are really the foundation of what the racing industry is from that perspective. And then when I was able to not only have that as kind of a foundation from the standpoint of my thought process, but then also be able to take what I think is a very fun and exciting concept, and create what I think is a very fun and exciting experience for the players of the game as well, something new and creative. At the end of the day, I'm hoping it's a win-win-win for everybody.
I love it. And I think that's a perfect place to end, on a win-win-win comment, right? Just wishing you the best. I love the platform. I love the technology. I think it's amazing. And I'm so excited that you are a part of the Game Plan U community, Mark, because not only because of the technology, and it's just an amazing product, but because of your expertise as a founder, and you just contribute so much to the community. And really, we're just really grateful that you are a part of the Game Plan U community. So thank you again for being here today. If people want to get in touch with you, this is your LinkedIn. This is how they can kind of check in with you and learn a little bit more about the business. They can also go to creativewagering.com to learn about the technology and the the product itself. Again, for those of you tuning in, this is Mindset Monday with Denise, Zack. GamePlanU.org is the place to learn about all that we're talking about today in terms of being a founder. If you want to be a member of the community, if you're an investor or an executive looking to get deal flow and looking to connect, please check us out. If you like this podcast and you want to hear more, please click subscribe and like this podcast. That helps us get the word out. Greatly appreciate you again, Mark, being here. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, more information at Denise at GamePlanU.org. Mark, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
And Denise, thank you very much for having me on. It's been great, and I cannot say enough with regard to the Game Plan U community and what you do, and Rob and Mike and the whole community as a whole. As I become a member of the community, I can't even tell you the people that have reached out from within the community to help. And just wonderful, great organization without question.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again.
Really appreciate that. All right, everyone, we'll see you next time on Mindset Monday. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.